Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are honored to have as our Master of Ceremonies Colonel Steve Parker. Steve spent 30 years as an Air Force pilot, retiring in 2000 as a colonel. During his time in the Air Force, he flew 5 different jet aircraft, commanded 4 organizations, and visited 93 countries. He has degrees and master's degrees in both public administration and human relations, and a bachelor's in political science. His military education included the Air War College, Air Command and Staff College, and Squadron Officer School. Steve flew airlift missions in Vietnam, the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, Grenada, Panama, the First Gulf War, and Bosnia, with over 5,000 hours flying time in military jets with an emphasis on the C-141 Starlifter. His post-Air Force life included serving as executive director here at the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. He was a senior aviation consultant for Stantec Consulting and has served as Deputy Commissioner, Kentucky Department of Aviation, and most recently was the Kentucky Aviation Commissioner, a post from which he retired this past August. He is very active in his Baptist church, where he teaches an adult Bible study class. His wife, Lori, has been Governor Bevan's office manager for 3 years, and like Steve, she also retired on August 31st. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Master of Ceremonies, Colonel Steve Parker.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get this squared away. Everybody hear me back in the back? Are we good? Because you can have the best program in the world, and if you can't hear it, it's like it never even happened. That bio was pretty boring, and even as me, it was pretty boring. I'm sorry, I didn't want them to do that, but they insisted, so whatever, an old Air Force guy. 2 things, though, you never hear an aviator say. Whoa, that's way too much bacon. And 2, I love wearing a tux, right? So we tolerate it. I'll be fidgeting with it because I haven't worn this thing in a while, but what a beautiful audience you are. Of course, if I look at this table here, I see a couple exceptions, but generally, this is a beautiful audience. Thank you for being here in this amazing place. How blessed are we to have the Aviation Museum of Kentucky and the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame here in Lexington. We are truly blessed. We have a lot of business to do. I have a few other opening remarks I'll get to in a moment, but let's start this special evening off by honoring our amazing country. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Thank you very much. Thank you, Air Force ROTC at UK. Great job. Thank you for clapping for them. You just got to see 4 future leaders of our United States Air Force. And if you get a chance tonight, because they're going to hang around and have dinner and enjoy the program, just chat with them a little bit. You'll find they're from all over Kentucky, at least one from out of state. And the young lady who was here on this end, the Color Guard commander, is a senior, and she's the cadet commander of the detachment right now and has been identified to become an Air Force pilot herself. So get to know them and thank them for choosing to serve this great nation. It makes a difference, and we certainly need them. You may have noticed when you came in the room, perhaps you didn't, but there's a small table sitting here with a plate and glass for one. In the military and many civilian organizations like this one who care about those who serve. That's called a missing man table. And it's a way to honor our fallen comrades, those that have been killed in action, missing in action, prisoners of war, etc. If we ever forget about them, what does that say about us as a people? So I have a brief narrative, and you Google missing man table, and you will find lots of different narratives, all good, lots of different ways it's done, all good. But here's one narrative, just to show you why we set this, why the Hall of Fame committee, who planned this whole thing, wanted to have that small table. Listen, you may have noticed a small table set for one that is off on its own. It is reserved to honor our fallen comrades in arms. This symbolizes that they are with us here in spirit. We should never forget the brave men and women who answered our nation's call and served the cause of freedom in a special way. We are ever mindful that the sweetness of enduring peace has always been tainted by the bitterness of personal sacrifice. We are compelled to never forget that while we enjoy our daily pleasures, there are others who have endured the agonies of pain, deprivation, and death. Would you join me? And I'm going to say a brief prayer before we move on to the rest of our program. Kind Father, thank you for this special night. Thank you for giving us this beautiful place to assemble. Thank you for this opportunity for friendship and fellowship, meeting new friends, getting to know previous friends again. And we pray especially for the men and women who are around the world, many of them in harm's way. As we gather here in this beautiful place with this wonderful meal, they are in harm's way. Members of our armed forces, our DoD contractors, civilians, etc. You know who they are. Please bring them home to their families. And we also pray for our police officers and firefighters and emergency medical technicians who take care of us on a daily basis, who, if we need them, they will be there. But they face danger, just like our military forces do around the world. Please protect them as well. Thank you for all the blessings in our lives, and thank you for loving us, because none of us certainly deserve it. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please prepare your glasses for our annual toast to Wilbur and Orville Wright. Now, you don't have to have an alcoholic beverage. You Baptists like me can just put water in there. That'll be fine, all right? So just charge your glasses, because we invited a very special gentleman to lead the Wright brothers toast. He wasn't available, so we got Larry Diener. Larry is a retired lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserves. He is a distinguished lawyer, to say the least. He was on the Bluegrass Airport board for 8 years and chairman of that board for 2. And I remember in 2017, when I was a Department of Aviation commissioner, we each year present an award for the Airport Board Member of the Year at all of our airports throughout Kentucky, all 59 of them. And I remember the committee that met in my office, and the clear winner was Larry Diener. He's done that much for aviation. He's also an avid single-engine pilot and glider pilot. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Diener.
Thank you, and before we start, Detachment 290, thank you very much. The Class of 71 salutes you. Thank you, carrying it on. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight as we're here to gather to honor the Kentucky's aviation achievers, we also pause to remember 2 men from Dayton, Ohio, who started it all, who built the first successful airplane and taught the world to fly. Please join me in a toast to the Wright brothers. Ladies and gentlemen, raise our glass in honor of and drink to the memory of Wilbur and Orville Wright. Hear, hear.
Thank you, Larry Diener. As Larry was going down the stairs, he wanted me to remind me to tell you, if you need a good lawyer, he's got business cards. All right? Okay, look, I'm a realist, right? I live in Realville. I know the UK football game is on. All right? I know they're playing at Missouri. I don't even know. I forgot to ask what the halftime score is. Don't tell me now, but when I sit down to have dinner with my lovely wife and my friends at table 12, somebody tell me what the halftime score is. So if I hear someone go, yes, I'll assume UK scored a touchdown. Unless you're from Missouri, that won't be good. These events do not happen without a lot of amazing people, in this case, all volunteers, doing a lot of stuff for a long period of time. And the Hall of Fame committee has worked so hard so you can enjoy this evening. And but I also want to recognize the guy who's not only the chairman of the board of the Aviation Museum, but is leading the Hall of Fame committee this time, is Jim McCormick, who is an amazing man. And those of you that know Jim McCormick, go ahead and clap for him. All right. I've known Jim McCormick for 20 years, and I don't think there's anything that man can't do extremely well. I was out here working with Jim McCormick on Thursday, setting up tables and stringing wire. He would say, okay, take this red wire, don't use blue or green, take the red, run it across there, camouflage it, put it around the phalange, double loop it, and connect it to the aardvark and all these kind of, I said, what? He understands that stuff. Well, if you're on the Hall of Fame committee, would you please stand up and be recognized? I know some of you are out there. There you go. Aviation is my life. I got my license at 20 years old, and I still have it. But the 21 years that God has blessed me to be a Kentuckian, and I grew up around the world. My dad was was a chief master sergeant in the Air Force. I grew up around the world, around the country. I never had a home. But in 1997, I was blessed to move to Kentucky. Shortly thereafter, I found out about this place and about the Hall of Fame. Aviation is a big deal in Kentucky. I don't know if you realize how big a deal it is. And the Aviation Museum of Kentucky, Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame, plays a significant role in motivating young people to get involved in the glory and splendor of aviation and recognizing and honoring those that do. It makes a difference with young people. Did you know also that the #1 export from the state of Kentucky is aviation and aerospace parts and components? Did you know that? We are the second leading state in America at exporting aviation and aerospace parts and components. We're second only to Washington State. Why is that? Boeing. I told the governor that about 6 months ago. He said, well, go out and get Boeing, right? I didn't get to do that. That's why I retired. But still, aviation is a big deal in Kentucky. And we're going to honor a company tonight, and we're going to honor 4 individuals who've proven that. There are George Gumbert, and I'm going to say a few words about Dr. Gumbert in a minute. It's going to be very hard. I love the man, just like most of you did. This is the first Hall of Fame that he's missed. We lost him earlier this year, right? It is not going to be easy to get through this, but before I get to that, there are some other distinguished people in the audience. George Gumbert would say, I'm not going to waste my time introducing all the special people because you know who you are, right? But I do have some I want to introduce. We have 3 former Hall of Fame enshrinees in the audience tonight. Major General Richard Freimeyer, class of 2006. General, are you here? Where is he? There he is. Okay, say hi, sir. Major General Stuart Byrne, class of 2008. Sir, are you here? Thank you. And Colonel Douglas Yates, class of 2012. Colonel Yates, are you here, sir? There he is. All right. Let me tell you, I would like to say a few things about each of these 3, but we don't have time. Jim McCormick would have a fit if I started doing that. But go to the Hall of Fame website. It's wonderful. And you can click on the year and see all the people that were enshrined. Go to 2006, 8, and 12 and see the amazing careers that these three men had. You will be very impressed. Yes, when I'm bored, I look at resumes of other former Air Force pilots. It's hard being me. It's even harder being my wife. Special guest as well, Stephanie Nelson. Are you here, Stephanie? There you are. Stephanie is the field representative for Central Kentucky for Senator Mitch McConnell. My wife and I knew Stephanie when her previous job, she was the head scheduler for Governor Bevin, and let me tell you, that's a hard job, right? Stephanie, good to have you. Bless you for coming. Another great friend of mine is here, Greg Voos. Where are you, Greg? Go ahead and stand up. Greg, how many of you have heard of the NBAA, National Business Aviation Association? A lot of people have. Those of us that love general aviation have to love AOPA and NBAA. They are doing such wonderful stuff. Well, Greg is a representative for NBAA for the whole southeast region, and he's a native Kentuckian from Maysville, and he loves Kentucky so much. And on behalf, with the authority that's been granted to me by absolutely no one, we're going to make him an honorary aviation professional in Kentucky, although he already is a Kentuckian. Greg, you're a great friend. Bless you for being here. Christine Bobko, are you here? Yeah, go ahead and stand up. It's okay. Yeah, Christine is the executive assistant at the Aviation Heritage Park in Bowling Green. I hope some of you have visited that site. I was an initial cadre board member of AHP way back. And we also have from Bowling Green, Derek Brown, curator of the National Corvette Museum. Wow. I don't know anyone that drives a Corvette, but we're really proud of what you do. It's a really cool thing that you do. One other thanks, a big thank you goes to the Town Branch Distillery for providing a special edition engraved bottle of Kentucky bourbon to each enshrinee tonight. So thank you, Town Branch Distillery. Very nice. I've seen the bottles. They are beautiful. Go ahead and clap for them. Good job. And the last recognition is, to me, as an old vet, is the most important one. I want everyone in here who is a veteran, served in any of the 5 branches, even Coast Guard, the 5 branches of the military, would you just stand up and let us clap for you for just a moment? All vets, stand up. Yeah, right. God bless America, and God bless all of you for serving, even those of you that were in the Navy. All right, here we go. No, but it's important. It's important to know if there are Navy people in the audience. Because you got to make sure you use small words at all times. I mean, that's just the way it is. We poke fun at each other, but let me tell you something. When the bullets start flying, nobody else better do it, because we're brothers and sisters of arms, aren't we? Navy, do you feel that way? Okay, good. All right, this is the hard part for me. Saying thanks to George Gumbert. You know, when I moved here in 1997, I got introduced to the Aviation Museum by George Gumbert and Wendell Murphy, 2 of the finest men I've ever known. We lost Wendell Murphy in 2001, and we lost George recently, this year. Betty Murphy, Wendell's amazing bride, is here. Betty, everybody knows where Betty is. She's at table 12. Yeah. And Marty, Dr. Gumbert's son, is here tonight. And Mary Jo, we all know you. We all love you. Bless you for all you do. We both, without Wendell Murphy and George Gumbert, we would have no place to go tonight. There would be no museum. There would be no Hall of Fame. Those two and others helped them that created the Aviation History Roundtable back in the late 70s, I think, long before I became a Kentuckian. And look what it's grown into. But all good things require men and women with vision. And certainly Wendell and George Gumbert had that vision. And George was instrumental in the last several years of getting Aviation Museum and the Hall of Fame recognized as the official organizations of that type in the state of Kentucky, right? So many times people who love George would say, George, we need to enshrine you into the Hall of Fame. Who's done more for aviation history in Kentucky aviation than George Gumbert? You need to be in there. And he said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. That glory goes to someone else. Well, finally, in 2013, George said yes. I think he relented more than saying yes. And what we're going to do, and we're going to move on with our program after this, we'll all talk about George many times in our private discussions. We'll honor him forever. But we're going to show you the video of 2013 in this like ceremony when George was enshrined into the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame. And the Hall of Fame committee wants you to see the video as a reminder of the man that Dr. George Gumbert was. Roll the video.
Born the day before Halloween in 1927, George Martin Gumbert Jr. learned quickly how to scare his parents. While raised on the family farm, his heart was really not into farming. As a teen, he realized his love for flying machines and all things aviation, hitchhiking to the big city of Lexington to take his first flying lessons at the old Cool Meadow Field. When this adventure was subsequently discovered by his mortified parents, his aspirations of flying came to a sudden, if only temporary, stop. After graduating from Eastern Kentucky University, where he played a small but salty right guard for the Colonel's football team, he headed to the University of Louisville for medical school. Studies came before flying, and it wasn't until he graduated from medical school and finished his orthopedic residency in Washington, D.C., that he returned to Kentucky and was able to pursue his passion for flying. Lest we get the landing before the approach, let us backtrack to George's college days at Eastern, where he met one Eva Madden, a pretty co-ed 2 years his junior. Known to all by her nickname Skip, the two dated and a romance blossomed, even with aviation undertones. While George was in medical school, Skip's sense of adventure and fascination with flying led her to leave Kentucky to join her sister Shauna as a hostess, the old-fashioned term for flight attendant, with Capital Airlines in Washington, D.C. Skip's move to D.C. had more than a little to do with George's choice of orthopedic residencies, and the two continued to date and eventually married, settling in Alexandria, Virginia. After his residency, George and Skip returned to Kentucky to a small general medical practice in Olive Hill, Kentucky. There, they learned to fly and received their private pilot licenses. After their brief stint in Olive Hill, George accepted an offer to join one of the first orthopedic practices in Lexington. Orthopedics kept George busy during the day, but the couple headed straight for Bluegrass Field once work was over and continued to own several small planes over the coming years, what became the family truckster, a twin-engine, four-place beach travel air, 8-4 Romeo. Those carefree days at Bluegrass Field fostered a close friendship that would have a lasting impact on our aviation museum. George and Skip met a soft-spoken line boy, Wendell Murphy, who pumped aviation gas and had acquired exactly one used car to rent to pilots when they came to Lexington. Wendell and his wife Betty would go on to found a still-thriving Avis car rental franchise, as well as Murphy Surf Air Trucking Company, and perhaps most importantly, to be a co-founder of the museum where you sit tonight. George's passion for flying became intertwined with his medical profession in several ways. He became a member of a fledgling national group, the Flying Physicians, whose purposes included furtherance of flying and humanitarian medical missions. George eventually became the group's national president. Another mix of flying and medicine occurred when George was named team physician of the Kentucky Wildcats football team back in the 1960s. Besides flying to all the away games, George also flew coaches on recruiting trips at his own expense. This was before the days of fractional interest Lear jets owned by big boosters, and the coaches were happy to climb in George's four-place 8-4 Romeo and head to see their next recruit. George's recruitment taxi spread to other sports, and he developed an all-round sports medicine practice, operating on the likes of Sam Bowie, Derek Ramsey, Sonny Collins, and other UK athletes. The origins of the Aviation Museum were modest at best. George and Wendell talked for some time, and their dreams took wing with the birth of the Kentucky Aviation History Roundtable. Most meetings were held in the evenings at George's medical office, many times with the high cuisine of Long John Silver's, supplied by fellow roundtable enthusiast and Jericho head Nick Sanders. Even in the early days, many a historically significant speaker was a guest, given George's connections with the National Aviation Hall of Fame in Dayton, Ohio. Over the years, that list included astronaut and enshrinee Story Musgrave, John Paul Riddle, founder of Emory-Riddle University, Major General Lee Wade, Douglas Wrong Way Corrigan, and General Paul Tibbets, pilot of the Enola Gay of World War II atomic bomb fame. With increasing support from the community and a stream of national caliber speakers, the Roundtable Fathers took the dream to the next level, the creation of the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. The mission was clear: to further aviation careers for the youth of the Commonwealth and preserve Kentucky's amazing contribution to the history of aviation. George was one of several that pledged financial and personal resources to its birth. The former Max's hangar at Bluegrass Field was to be its new home. The Aviation Museum held its grand opening April 15, 1995, with the Doolittle Raiders as the honored guests. The Raiders held their 53rd anniversary reunion at the museum, considered by many in the aviation world to be a coup. Since that time, the museum has continued to prosper, with ever-increasing numbers in its summer aviation camps now held at airports statewide. Growing pains led to a major move for the museum into the spacious quarters where you sit today. George and Skip continued to shepherd the museum, supplying memorabilia and aircraft for its exhibits. Along the way, they produced two children, Mary Jo and George III, both licensed pilots and aviation enthusiasts. George never lost his love for aviation, nor his desire to inspire young people and families, and still considers his part in the creation of the Aviation Museum of Kentucky as one of his greatest accomplishments. It is therefore fitting that George Martin Gumbert Jr. be enshrined into the official Aviation Hall of Fame of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Okay. God bless you, George. We miss you, brother. Enjoy your dinner. Don't forget about the silent auction. It's only going to be open until 7. You don't want to miss that opportunity. Some really cool stuff. And enjoy the music by this amazing woman who I've met tonight, and she is as humble and gentle as she is professional. Jan Hill. Thank you, Jan. Start playing anytime. All right, good. Enjoy your dinner.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again tonight's Master of Ceremonies, Colonel Steve Parker.
Thank you very much. How about a round of applause for Seasons Catering for our wonderful meal? I thought it was quite good, did you not? Yes. One thing I forgot to mention earlier because I didn't know, but I've learned that Senator McConnell wrote a personal note to all the enshrinees tonight and hand-signed all of them. Stephanie, his Central Kentucky field rep, brought them, and I just realized they were here. So thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Senator McConnell, for recognizing our enshrinees. We appreciate it very much. I hope you enjoyed your dinner. Now we'll begin the more formal part of our evening together. Each year, the Kentucky Aviation Achievement Award, is given to a group or individual that has shown through their actions an outstanding commitment to the preservation or promotion of aviation and/or aerospace in Kentucky. The 2018 Kentucky Aviation Achievement Award will be presented to Alltech. Located in Lexington, Alltech Lexington Brewing and Distilling Company is also known for Kentucky Ale beer. The late Dr. Pierce Lyons' background in brewing and distilling made him the ideal person to combine two great things, beer and bourbon. Hailing from 5 generations of barrel makers, he was the first, here's a fact you can win something at the bar. He was the first Irishman to earn a formal degree from the British School of Malting and Brewing. I just had the pleasure backstage of meeting Deidre Lyons. You're going to love meeting her in just a moment. Our focus tonight is to show how Alltech, as a great company, a company we're so proud to have in Kentucky, uses aviation as a valuable tool growing their business. Watch the video.
When you have a successful business with locations around the world, the ability to react and respond to any of those locations quickly is a necessity. Tonight, we honor such a business with the Aviation Achievement Award. Alltech Inc., based in Nicholasville, Kentucky, is a company that understands that corporate aviation is the key to success in a global economy. Founded in 1980 by Dr. Pierce Lyons, Alltech is a biotechnology company that develops and manufactures natural feed supplements that improve animal performance. It provides natural solutions, technical information, and support to various sectors of the animal nutrition industry and supports products for the dairy cow, beef cattle, poultry, pig, equine, aquaculture, and pets, as well as soil health solutions, nutrition products, and protection programs. With a global team of more than 6,000 people, they work toward the vision of sustaining and nourishing the world's plants, animals, and people, and to help build the future of agriculture, and the use of aviation helps with the support of that vision. With production facilities in the U.S. and around the world, the benefits of using corporate aviation are clear. It allows for efficient, flexible, safe, secure, and cost-effective access to destinations across the country and around the world. You don't always know in advance where or when opportunities will present themselves. In today's business environment, a company needs to be nimble enough to move quickly. Alltech's use of its aviation resources provides the flexibility necessary to ensure its employees can respond to changing demands and circumstances. More than 3% of all commercial airline flights are canceled and nearly 1/4 are delayed. Because many commercial airlines fly at higher capacities with fewer trips, if a flight is canceled or delayed and a connection is missed, the odds of getting on the next plane are significantly reduced. And that's where the use of private, company-owned aircraft really shines. With its staff of 6, its aviation department is ready to fly to any location in the world in a matter of hours. Corporate aviation is a tool, and it's a tool that is used well by Alltech. Currently, its fleet consists of 2 aircraft. The first, the Beechcraft King Air 350, is one of the world's most popular business turboprop aircraft. With a range of 1,440 nautical miles and a top speed of 320 knots, it is used mostly for domestic trips. When the need is to fly to locations outside of the United States, they call upon their Gulfstream G550. With a range of 6,750 nautical miles and a top speed of Mach 0.8, it can fly non-stop for up to 12 hours from Lexington to locations around the world. Except for Antarctica, Alltech's fleet of current and past aircraft have traveled to every continent. In some years, that added up to more than 1,000 hours of flight time. To put that in perspective, Alltech was told that it was the most highly utilized Part 91 operator of the Gulfstream 550 in the world. While some may perceive the use of private aircraft in business as a luxury, that is not the case with Alltech. Its aircraft are tools, and they are used as tools to help promote the business. The ability to reach multiple destinations in a single day is a task that would otherwise be hard or impossible to complete. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are saved on hotel rooms, rental cars, meals, and other expenses that would be needed to make the same trip over several days via car, train, or commercial airline. On top of that, business aircraft can access 10 times as many domestic airports as the commercial airlines. While traveling abroad in the company aircraft, employees can meet, plan, and work en route. It allows them to discuss proprietary information in a secure environment without fear of eavesdropping, industrial espionage, or even physical threat, and they can maximize their productivity. The average trip on the commercial airlines takes 3 hours longer door-to-door than it does on a business aircraft. Additionally, studies have shown that their time en route is much more productive in a business aircraft than it is in the public environment of an airline cabin. While executives are productive 30% of the time on a commercial carrier, they're found to be productive about 80% of the time when they're flying on a company aircraft. Alltech has grown into a multi-billion-dollar company. Part of this growth can be attributed to acquisitions. When senior management sees a company that will help further its corporate vision, they are quick to move. For example, a factory survey in one state to the next, going to the home office in a second state, and finally flying to a third far-off location to finalize the deal, it can all be done in one day with the use of corporate aviation. Alltech takes to heart the adage time is money, and they see corporate aviation as the way to seek increased productivity and profitability while providing healthier, happier work environments for their employees. It is therefore fitting that Alltech be awarded the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame 2018 Aviation Achievement Award.
I bet you all learned something about Alltech that you didn't know before. How blessed are we as Kentuckians to have them in our state, for sure, and that they appreciate the value of aviation in growing a business. Now I'd like to invite to the stage Mike Kraft, who's the manager of Alltech's Aviation Department. Mike? You can clap for him if you like.
Thank you. My name is Mike Kraft. I am the department manager for the Alltech Corporate Flight Department. Watching the video backstage just now reminds me of how privileged I am to actually get to do this for a living. They pay me to do this. I think a lot of times we get wrapped up in the day-to-day activities, and when Jim came to shoot these videos, I didn't really notice it until I was just standing out there looking into the hangar, looking at what we've got, look at the facility we have, and I truly feel privileged to get to work there. It's just an incredible place to be. Before I get started and get too far into this, I'd like to introduce the guys in the flight department. Without these guys, this wouldn't be possible. They do more than just their jobs. They make the job enjoyable. So if I could, and if you stand up when I say your name, Greg Clifford, he's our chief pilot. Jared Scrafton, he's our international standards and training captain. Eric Anderson, there he is. Eric's our SMS compliance officer. He makes sure that we are dealing with the SMS system to make us legal in Europe now with his BAO. Where's Payne? Payne, or Derek, I should say. We call him Payne. His name's Derek Birch. Derek is our King Air captain. He'll be going to school on the 550 next year, so he's going to start hitting the world scene before long. And Andrew Strauss, there he is. He's our dispatcher. Andrew does a lot of different things. He does the dispatching, the scheduling. He does all the international trip planning, coordination, all that stuff to make these guys' jobs a little bit easier. So give them a round of applause if you don't mind, please. Alltech Aviation, what is it? I've been asked this many times over the years. What is Alltech Aviation? Alltech Aviation to me is the epitome of what corporate aviation is all about. You use aircraft to expand and build on the business. Alltech was founded back in 1980 by Dr. Lyons and Mrs. Lyons, and I doubt that if you had asked them at that time, would their company grow into a multi-billion-dollar business with thousands of employees all over the world? They probably would have said no, but here we are. That's what they are to this day. But how did they get there? Alltech has done a lot of things in the relatively short amount of time. Excuse me if I have a cheat sheet. My memory's not what it used to be. My eyesight certainly isn't either. But they were able to take this small company, develop it into what Alltech is today. And the way they did that was through leadership, dedication, and drive. As Alltech grew, both Dr. Lyons and Mrs. Lyons both realized that there were going to be some investments that had to be made in order for the company to continue to go in that direction. And so Flight Department was born. Alltech has, in a really relative short amount of time, jumped some pretty big hurdles to get to where they are on an aircraft. They started off with a King Air 90, went to the 350, got into the jets with the 45. Once that business began to grow even further, we needed a demand for a true global aircraft, and that was this Challenger 604. The 604 did a great job for us, but with business being what it is, the speed in which you need to get to where you need to be, we needed something more. And that's where the Gulfstream 550 came into play. And if I could add, if any of you have seen the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he makes a comment in there where he suggests everybody should pick up a Ferrari. I would say the same thing with a 550. If you can get one of those, do. It will spoil you. It's really the best way to travel. But even with the 550, it has its drawbacks. It's very fast, has very long range, but it's also very heavy. And with Alltech's business, we deal with agriculture a lot, so we need to be able to get into the smaller fields, get closer to where our customers are. Once again, Dr. and Mrs. Lyons recognized that need, so we added a King Air 350 to the fleet. The King Air has allowed us to get in, has saved us a lot of time. We learned some lessons with the 550 a couple years ago, trying to get up north during the wintertime. It's difficult on some of the smaller fields. So we added the King Air 350, and it's done a great job for us. In the video, they had mentioned that the aircraft are tools. They really are. In the 30 years I've been doing this, I've not worked for another company that has used aircraft quite this way. And I was talking with Mrs. Lyons about this earlier. I've had a lot of jobs in corporate aviation, and a lot of that stems from how the aircraft were used. When they're toys, they don't last long. They're just too expensive to keep. But when you use the aircraft like they're designed for as a tool, the business just keeps growing, getting bigger and bigger and better and better. So that's where we are today. Tonight, Alltech has been, we're going to be the recipient of the 2018 Aviation Achievement Award. And I couldn't be more proud or more happy for not just the company, but for Mrs. Deirdre Lyons. Mrs. Lyons. Present you with this award, 2018 Kentucky Aviation Achievement Award.
I would just like to say thank you. We're thrilled with this. One of Pierce's most favorite quotes was from Steve Jobs, "Be a yardstick for quality." And he practiced this every day. Because of that, we were able to take, with our aviation department, they've taken us from being a small company in central Kentucky and have a global reach. And that's the benefit of having our own aviation department. We're very proud of the group, all the pilots, delighted, and under the leadership of Mike Kraft and his strength, this department has grown. It's very strong. Every single one of these guys has a smile on his face every day. There's nothing they wouldn't do when anybody's on board. Our customers love them. It's been a real pleasure to work with them, and we're very honored and delighted to receive this award tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Alltech. How about Deirdre Lyons? What an honor it was for me to meet her for the first time. What a grand lady. Now we're going to move into the phase of a program where we honor the 4 individuals who make up the 2018 Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame class. Our first honoree will be Brigadier General Jess Otten. Now we'll have a video.
Reading through biographical information on Hall of Fame selectee Jesse Otten is like reading a history of the United States Air Force. Promotions and commendations signed or approved by Army Air Force's general officers, including Hap Arnold. Assignments with organizations from early fighter groups to military air transport service to strategic air command. Flight time in aircraft as varied as the P-51, C-47, B-25, and F-84. His is Air Force and aviation history. So let's start at the beginning. Born in northern Kentucky on December 1st, 1904, Jesse was the son of a stonemason. He attended Pioneer High School, now Pioneer Elementary, in Kenton County, and then Georgetown College, graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in Education and Math. In 1927, he returned to Pioneer High for a year as a teacher and assistant principal. Jesse was looking beyond rural Kentucky, though, dreaming of becoming a pilot. He and a friend began that adventure by taking a flying course at Lunken Field near Cincinnati. After completing the course, Jesse gave up education and joined the Army Air Service as an aviation cadet in October 1928. Auten attended pilot training at Brooks and Kelly Fields, Texas, and received his pilot wings and reserve commission upon his graduation on October 12, 1929. He was assigned to the 94th Pursuit Squadron at Selfridge Field, Michigan in January 1930, achieving his regular commission at the same time. From 1930 through 1936, Auten had several temporary assignments, excelling at each. In December 1936, now First Lieutenant Auten was designated as a White House aide and detailed to Bowling Field, Washington, D.C. Arriving in January 1937, he was also assigned duty as aide and pilot for the Assistant Secretary of War Lewis Johnson. He flew Johnson on many lengthy trips, including aerial surveys of Alaska, and once served as an escort officer for the body of a famed Mexican aviator who died in a U.S. plane crash, hand-delivering a note of condolence from FDR to the Mexican president. Now Captain Auten was reassigned in January 1941 to Hamilton Field, California, taking command of the 79th Pursuit Squadron. He was promoted to major in March and assigned as Group Executive Officer for the 20th Pursuit Group at Hamilton under Colonel Ira Eaker, soon to be famous as the 8th Air Force commander and architect of daylight precision bombing in World War II. When Eaker left the 20th in August, Auten was selected to command the group, leading them through numerous training exercises in preparation for war. At the outbreak of World War II, Major Auten was given a special assignment as an observer to the British Isles to survey for potential bases for the newly formed 8th Air Force. Upon return in 1942, he was promoted and detailed first as Plans and Training Officer for the 3rd Fighter Command in Tampa, and again as commander of the 20th, now Fighter Group, to build it up and prepare it for war, and commander of the San Francisco Air Defense Wing, which was deployed to England in May 1943 as the 4th Air Defense Wing. In late July, this wing was redesignated as the 65th Fighter Wing and assigned to the 8th Air Force, the first operational U.S. fighter wing in Europe. As wing commander, Colonel Auten now had control of 5 fighter groups, including the famed 4th Eagle Squadrons and 56th Zemeckis Wolfpack, as well as an emergency rescue squadron. He and his staff developed fighter command and control procedures and improved communications between fighters and the bombers they escorted, thus helping to protect the bomber formations during their flights to Germany. His wing also developed most of the air-sea rescue techniques used in the theater and accounted for more victories over enemy aircraft, 3,650, than any other organization in the European theater. Promoted to Brigadier General by General Jimmy Doolittle in March 1944, General Auten was awarded many decorations for his European service, including the Air Medal, Bronze Star, Distinguished Flying Cross, and Legion of Merit. Following the war, General Auten, like many others, reverted to the rank of colonel and held a number of positions, including base command of Lowry and Williams Field. At Williams, he was instrumental in the flying training of Chinese aviation cadets and was awarded Chinese Air Force wings in appreciation of his valued service. Colonel Auten served as the Director of Operations for the Air Transport Command in 1947 and later as Director of Plans and Operation for the Military Air Transport Service. He commanded a deployed wing of C-54s during the Berlin airlift, personally flying 20 missions delivering coal to the embargoed city. In 1949, assumed command of the U.S. Air Force Station at Goose Bay, Labrador, and followed that with an assignment at the Strategic Air Command, which was new under General Curtis LeMay. Deployed by LeMay to Korea in 1950 to assess air operations there, he flew combat missions in numerous aircraft types, including the F-84, and was awarded the Legion of Merit, 1st Oak Leaf Cluster, for his work with the fighter units there. Returning stateside, Auten was again promoted to Brigadier General in October 1951 and served as Chief of Fighter Operations at SAC headquarters. General Auten continued to fly various aircraft for the command, but on March 30, 1952, his plane lost an engine on approach to Offutt and crashed on a go-around. He and his co-pilot were killed, though his 4 passengers lived. He's buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Never married, General Auten's legacy lives on at his beloved Pioneer School. where, through a death bequest, he has helped fund several projects, including a new library which was named in his honor. It is therefore fitting that General Jesse Auten be enshrined into the official Aviation Hall of Fame of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Brigadier General Jesse Auten. Wow, what a career. Did you see some of the people he was hanging around with? My goodness. It's my pleasure now to bring Andrew Auten to the stage. Andrew is a great nephew from Knoxville, Tennessee. We still are going to be polite, even though he's from Knoxville, and is assisting with research on a book about his hero, General Auten. And then Tim McPherson will come forward in a moment to receive the award on behalf of the family. These two, Andrew and Tim is also a great nephew, but he's from Independence, Kentucky. These two family members never knew each other until this event. Isn't that pretty special? All right, now Andrew Auten.
Thank you. When I was asked to create the presentation tonight, the first thing that went through my head was a very simple question. It was, who was Jesse Auten? And all my life, I've actually asked that question many, many times because growing up as an Auten, you always heard about your great Uncle Jesse. He was the greatest man. He was amazing. He was 10 feet tall. He was literally, well, according to the Autens, the greatest Auten that ever lived. Well, as I got to know him even more, I've done extensive research on him. I found out that he wasn't 10 feet tall, but he was 7 feet tall. From an early age, Jesse dreamed of flying. And one of those dreams was he would tie a large rope up in the barn of their family farm, and that rope would swing back into the barn up to a loft, and him and his siblings and his cousins, they would get on that rope and swing out through the barn doors. And I can only imagine all the bumps and bruises that came from that. He was raised during the time of the Depression, and he was raised with the value of learning and working hard. There was a point in his life where he was actually working on a steam engine with his brother at a local garage. When one of the customers of the garage came up to the owner and said, "Them boys know what they're doing?" The owner looked at him and says, "Yes, they do." And they were about 11 or 12 at the time. At one point, he got a job with a local construction company working on a highway there in northern Kentucky. Jesse was described as being free with advice and had always taking too much initiative. He did that a lot with his foreman, and then his foreman gave him a pink slip. He wanted to do something great, and he wanted people to know it, and not out of arrogance either. He was a valedictorian of his graduating class at Pioneer School, and he went to Georgetown College, as the video explained. And looking at his grades, you can tell that nothing held him back to achieve anything that he went after. Once he taught at Pioneer, just like the video said, he joined the military. During that time, when he would be home from service on leave, he would spend almost all the time with family. He was all about his family and all about his community. He would attend church every time he was in town, mainly because his maternal grandfather was a fire and brimstone Baptist preacher. Okay? He went to church. But while he was at Georgetown, one of his classmates wrote in a letter saying that his Christianity was more than a formal gesture. It was a vital and contagious spirit that characterized everything he did. It is no wonder then that he exerted a great moral and spiritual influence on the entire student body. Also, while serving in the military, he was remembered as an administrator. Colonel Hubert Zemke of the 56th Fighter Group called him a paperweight. Other officers saw him in a little bit of a different life. For example, Lieutenant General Curtis LeMay said of him when he received his brigadier general rank again after World War II, the general said that he was highly qualified to assume responsibilities of a general officer. Along with that serious nature, he also had a silly side to him as well. This is the fun part. When he would fly missions early on in his military career and going forward, he would try his best to fly over the family farm. During those times, he would actually do stunt flying over the family farm to their entertainment. Everyone loved it except for one woman who wrote a letter of complaint. Jesse was actually able to intercept that letter before prying eyes got to see it, but it unfortunately stopped the stunt flying, which my dad could actually remember that type of flying when he was a boy. Even though he stopped the stunt flying, he would still fly over the farm and he would drop presents down to the family from the plane. He also enjoyed time with family, as I said before. One of the only living relatives that's still alive is Mrs. Carol Bagby Chapman. And she can recall times when he would come home from the service. He would put her on his back, put her feet into his belt, and take her down to the market and get her soda and candy. I'm sure her mother loved that. He was an amazing individual. And I'm not just saying that as him being my great uncle. And he was so focused on his community. There was a time where he was visiting an Air Force base as a general in Texas, and he found out that there was a young Airman First Class there who was from Morningview, Kentucky, which is fairly close by to Piner, where he grew up. General Otten, or Jesse, had that airman come up to the commanding officer's office, sat down with him, and had a wonderful conversation with him. By the time the conversation was over and the young airman left, he thought, well, that was great. I got to meet General Otten. That was fantastic. But what he didn't realize was that Jesse had actually gotten him advanced enrolled into an advanced training course long before he ever completed his basic training course. So as you can see, Jesse used his influence not just for prestige. He focused on everyone that he was around. He tried to get everyone where they needed to go because that was his mentality. He would set a goal, do what he needed to do to achieve that goal, and then he'd set a new one and go after that one as well. There are numerous times in his career that he received a number of different accommodations, and I think you can see that he was well deserving of it. Thank you all for letting me come out and speak tonight, and thank you to the museum for giving him this honor. I'd like to introduce my cousin and also a great nephew of General Otten, Mr. Tim McPherson. Tim, on behalf of the museum, I would do this on behalf of Jesse.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tim McPherson is now receiving the medallion inscribed in the name of Brigadier General Jesse Otten, who is declared duly enshrined in the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame.
Anybody notice the difference in the name? My mother was his niece, so it's on my mother's side of the family. Like he said, we are cousins. He was a great uncle to me, uncle to my mother. What can I say about someone that I've never got to meet? Well, you know how they a lot of times say, who would you want to go back in time and have dinner with? He's right up there. I mean, it would be him and maybe Raquel Welch in her 20s, but I think I'll go with him. Yeah. My mom was the daughter of Fred Otten, his brother, his oldest brother. My grandpa Otten was born in 1898, and he served in World War I. He was in there from 17 to 19, through the war's end. Uncle Jesse was 25 years old when my mom came along, and he was already in the service. So, of course, most of the family only got to see him when he would come home on leave and would be able to spend time and such with him. She was 23 when he died. Still pretty young. She told me about going to Washington, D.C. for the funeral with my grandma and grandpa and how much that bothered her. It stayed with her for a long time. The procession of Andy and I being cousins, his grandfather was the next to youngest sibling of Uncle Jesse. And our family tends to have a history of long generations. I actually looked it up, and my grandfather was 30 when my mom came along. She was the older of two siblings. My mom was 30 when I came along. I was 30 when my oldest son came along. And I looked backwards through the generations, and the 3 generations prior to that on the maternal side were 30 years, 29, 30 years apart. So in an entire century, we only had 3 generations. So I don't know if we're slow or what. I'm not sure what that's from. But my grandmother was a prolific pen pal back in the days when people wrote letters. And she had file cabinets of pen pals all across the United States. Well, I think that ended up, being inducted into my mother, who did genealogy for decades. How many people are on Ancestry.com? It's so handy. It's neat. My mom did it on paper and sat in libraries and reading microfilm and fish and finding stuff out of there, and the paper would go across the table for the generations back. She was my encyclopedia about everything. I remember when a bunch of papers were released from Uncle Jesse to my grandmother, because, my grandpa was already dead, but, that was the eldest one. And my cousin and I think I was 10, he was like 12. We're digging through these papers, and they were all marked top secret and stuff, and you'd open them up, and you'd find a golf scorecard. And I didn't get that. And then they explained to me, well, during the war, they didn't want the Germans to know where officers were playing golf or having dinner or anything else. That stuff was all top secret. There were tons of this stuff, just tons of it. I did a report in high school. We had a 9 weeks class when I was in high school on World War II, and did a report on Uncle Jesse, and got to bring his sword in there to the school and medals and displayed it all. And then my son, when he was in high school, he did a report on Uncle Jesse. Being as the difference of 30 years, we had to jump through some hoops about bringing a sword to school. I had to bring it up there, take it to classroom. He did the report. I had to take it away. I understand. Even though it was not a sharp edge, it still could run anybody through. A couple interesting things. One that was always, I don't know if you'd say amused, but I thought was really neat. You heard that Uncle Jesse developed this fighter control to help the bombers. Well, my father was a tail gunner in a B-17 bomber. So I thought it was always kind of neat that, my uncle protected my dad. So anyway, that always did choke me up. Anyway, there's some other things that have good things that have happened about him. If you're from anywhere a little more north, there's the Cincinnati Museum Center. And they had, that was the Union Terminal, was the Museum Center in Cincinnati now. And they had an exhibition on World War II. And I took both my boys over there, and as you were walking into the place, there was a big glass cabinet with Uncle Jesse's uniform and a mannequin, the sword, the medals, all the stuff. He was the first really one of World War II things. You went in there to see that. I thought that was super, super neat. A couple other little tidbits. One of them that they didn't mention in the presentation was that there's a thing called the Order of the Freemen, the Borough of the Saffron Walden in England. Last time I checked, there was about 18 people who ever got it. Uncle Jesse was the only American to this point to have ever gotten that award from England. The Croix de Guerre with Palms from France, Croix de Guerre with Palms from Belgium, all because his fighter wing protected Europe over that time. And in this recent information we found, I didn't realize how many combat missions he actually flew. They mentioned Goose Bay, Labrador. We got a call. I believe I was a teenager, and it was from somebody from the military, because I know I was living on Turkey Road at the time. And they said they are dedicating a barracks to Uncle Jesse at the Goose Bay, Labrador field up there. So they were going to name a barracks after him, and they would like us to attend. Well, Dad didn't mind driving, but then we found out we would have had to charter a plane to get to Goose Bay. It's so far north. And we couldn't afford that, so we didn't get to go. And Mom thought the funny part was that it was a women's barracks that they named after him, and him having never been there. So I thought that was quite interesting. I've tried to follow up with them, and that has all changed hands. I believe is gone now. The one last thing that we're not sure about that my mom had always told me, we visited the Air Force Museum out in, was it Colorado Springs, that was put together by the Stearns-Eisenhower Commission, started in 1949. You saw from the videos of what good friends Eisenhower and my great uncle were. And she always told me that he was involved in the research, development, the founding of the Air Force Museum out there. And that was, you know, the museum was started, the report was in 1949, and it was started in 1954. So he would have been in the middle of that mix. He was in Denver, he was in Omaha at that time. I hope to find out someday how much involvement he actually was in that. But if he would have lived, my mom said he was a very intelligent person. I would so much love to have talked to him. She said he loved to solve puzzles and stuff. LeMay went to Washington, and Uncle Jesse was second in command at Offutt, which became SAC headquarters. I really want to think that he would have become the commander there if, you know, that hadn't happened. Him and the co-pilot were both killed in the wreck. The 4 guys in the back survived. So we'll never know what actually happened, but, you know, I think he was a hero right to the end. Thank you very much.
Next, you get to get introduced to the second member of the 2018 class of the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame. That person is Lieutenant Commander David Render Berry. We'll have a video and then some presenters.
Pilots, especially military pilots in actual combat situations, are known for extending the forces of gravity, more commonly known as pulling Gs. In addition to pulling the standard types of Gs, this Hall of Fame enshrinee can be known for another set of Gs. They are gallantry, defined as courageous, heroic, valiant, and dauntless. Greatness, defined as excellent, skillful, talented, distinguished, and leader. And generosity, giving the ultimate sacrifice. David Render Berry was born in Owensboro, Kentucky on July the 13th, 1915, to Frances Render Berry, a housewife, and Jessie Berry, a teacher, both from Owensboro. While attending Owensboro High School, Dave worked several jobs and tried not to disappoint his father. He worked his way through the University of Kentucky and was president of Delta Gamma Epsilon and graduated with a degree in mining and mechanical engineering in 1938. Dave heard from a friend about the Army Air Force and drove down to Washington to join because he wanted to fly. As there was not a parking place in front of the Army recruiter, he parked in front of the Navy recruitment and went in. They would not let him out until he signed up as a Navy reservist. Dave earned his wings and was assigned to the USS Yorktown, which at the time was part of the Atlantic Fleet. In between flying, Dave was assigned as a boat officer on a motorboat carrying officers to and from the Yorktown to Bermuda. He was a better airplane pilot than a tender pilot, and on one trip managed to run his boat aground. Unfazed by the event, he used it as the inspiration in naming his Cocker Spaniel Yorktown Motor Lodge 3. One of the last things Dave did before leaving Bermuda was purchase perfume for Jacqueline, who would be his future wife. He stuffed it into his flight suit for safekeeping. He said it was his smoothest flight ever. After the outbreak of war in 1941, the Yorktown was deployed to the Pacific, and it was not long before Dave was involved in actions that showed his leadership and bravery. On March 10, 1942, while on patrol over New Guinea, and in the face of heavy anti-aircraft fire, he led a vigorous and determined dive-bombing attack on a light cruiser and scored a direct hit, resulting in severe damage and probable destruction of the enemy vessel. He was recognized for his courage and was awarded the Navy Cross. In May of that same year, he saw more action as the Yorktown was involved in the Battle of the Coral Sea. For 3 days between May 5th to May 8th, Dave flew missions where, as a result of his actions and his conscientious devotion to duty and gallant self-command against formidable odds, he was awarded 2 Navy Crosses and the Air Medal. This equaled 1 for each day of combat. The wording on the commendations included, despite adverse weather conditions and in the face of intense and accurate anti-aircraft fire, he aggressively and inspiringly led his squadron in a dive-bombing attack against a Japanese battleship protected by a cruiser and destroyers. As a result of this highly coordinated attack, his squadron scored 8 direct hits on the enemy battleship and thus contributed materially later to the sinking of the ship. His aggressiveness and determined leadership during this operation was inspiring, and his skill and courage were at all times in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Dave was also awarded the Purple Heart. As the Yorktown was lost during the Battle of Midway, Dave returned on board the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise to Pearl Harbor, where he proposed to Jacqueline, and they were married quickly in Honolulu. From there, Dave and Jacqueline sailed to the States with the wives from the Yorktown who did not know that they were widows yet. Dave did know, and that was very difficult for him. Dave was transferred to Jacksonville as a dive bomber instructor. Dave was called back into action in 1945 as a lieutenant commander on the USS Essex. While at sea, he awaited the birth of his only child, Linda Jo. David distinguished himself while leading his squadron in 20 strikes against enemy shipping, airfields, installations, and defense positions, inflicting extensive damage and contributing greatly to the success of these missions. His courage and determination were at all times in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. He fought his final battle on May 13, 1945. He was one of 15 SB-2C dive bombers that attacked Saiki Airfield, Kyushu. He was the only bomber that was shot down into the sea. He is listed in official Navy records as missing in action. Dave wrote in a letter to the family, "Time is a non-entity at sea. Aviation ceaselessly binding you into its fold, grasps you even ever tighter over water. There are no thrills that match those of the dive bomber. In the air is a wonderful place to fight. There is no mud or filth of trenches, no forced marching, and no personal contact. You make your own theater to fight in. The fighting is clean, impersonal, fast, and beautiful. The sea is an adequate burial ground for those who lose. The incessant waves form a permanent marker." As a Navy dive bomber who pulled more than his share of G's and whose short life exemplifies gallantry, greatness, and generosity, it is therefore fitting that Lieutenant Commander David Render Berry be enshrined into the official Aviation Hall of Fame of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Lieutenant Commander David Berry. What an amazing story, an amazing career, and what an aviator he was. You're going to meet 2 members of his family now. The first will be Jonathan Platt, grandson of David Berry. Jonathan lives in Pelham, New York, and is an attorney with the New York office of the Federal Trade Commission. And then Jonathan will introduce Linda Jo Platt, who will receive the award on behalf of the family. You saw a picture of Linda Jo when she was a very tiny baby in one of those photos. She is the only child of David Berry. She's from Dobbs Ferry, New York, and is a director of Community Nursery School of the South Presbyterian Church, also in Dobbs Ferry, and she's been the director of that program for 40 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Platt.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank everyone involved in that wonderful video. It was very moving for us. I'm afraid I have a pretty difficult task in telling you about my grandfather, a man I never knew. What I can do is tell you a little bit about him in his own words and those that flew and fought with him in the Pacific in 1945. A few years ago, I had the great honor of speaking with some of them. The earliest letter of his we have was written right here in Lexington, Kentucky, while he was a student at the University of Kentucky in 1935. "Dear Dad," he wrote, "guess I'm quite a disappointment, sort of flighty." And that was his word. I didn't put that in there. It proved to be prescient. "I am so restless all the time, and I can hardly sit through a class. I try to settle down, but it's hard. But I'm still going to try." Now, as we know, this restless engineering student found himself in some of the most pivotal battles of World War II in the Pacific, Battle of the Coral Sea and the Battle of Midway, where he excelled at aerial combat and earned 3 of his Navy crosses, but also lost his best friends in the war. After Midway, he returned to the States in 1942 to serve as a flight instructor. "It is a great responsibility," he wrote at the time, "and at times I break out in a cold sweat, thinking that I might forget to teach them something that might mean their lives. They are so oblivious to what they're getting into, which may be the best way. As Dick Marshall and Shelby Mitchell, who later flew under my grandfather's command, explained to me, my grandfather was not just a pilot, he was a combat pilot, and he turned men and pilots into combat pilots to try to save their lives." And then in 1944, he did what so many heroes do after risking their lives in dangerous places for their country. He went back. After flying another 25 missions, he wrote, "We have been going through a difficult phase of the war, and I should have some interesting stories to tell my grandchildren when I'm old and gray, if I'm not bald first. Unfortunately, my sister Jennifer and I never heard these stories, but I say with great pride that Shelby Mitchell's and Dick Marshall's grandchildren did." Now he wrote his last letter in April 1945, a month before he was shot down. Before he died, he had the opportunity to not just receive another medal, but award one to my grandmother, which brings us to why we, and more specifically I, am here. The award was issued on official letterhead, and I'd just like to read it to you all. "The commanding officer of Bombing Squad 83 proudly presents the Distinguished Maternity Cross to Jacqueline D. Berry for distinguishing herself by extraordinary and meritorious achievement while a patient at the Bowling Green Hospital in April 1945. As a wife of a naval dive bombing pilot, and while living in strange ports, she did deliver unto him an heir, or heirs, which was or were the finest in all the land. Her courage and skill in carrying out with perfect timing the prearranged plan was at all times in keeping with the highest tradition of the United States Naval Services." David Render Berry, Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Naval Reserve. And with this, I present to you the subject of this award, his daughter, my mother, Linda Jo Berry Platt.
Ladies and gentlemen, Linda Jo Platt is now receiving the medallion inscribed in the name of Lieutenant Commander David Render Berry, who is declared duly enshrined in the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame.
I rarely see my son cry, but you're going to see me cry. So I wrote something and I brought it in my dad's 1935 University of Kentucky College of Engineering portfolio that he got. So well, let me set the stage. My mother was born in Paris, France. She was the daughter of a French chef, traveled Europe extensively, New York, and finally to the Hawaiian Islands with her dad at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel in the late 30s. They met, fell in love, and married. So now, this David Render Berry I never knew. I was born April 4th, 1945, in Bowling Green, Kentucky. 8 days later, President Franklin Roosevelt was dead. 1 month later, on May 13th, my mother, Jacqueline's first Mother's Day, and VE Day, my dad was shot down in the Pacific by anti-aircraft fire. Sometime in late May, my mother and David's family heard the devastating news. My mother wrote, "I am still so numb that I trust and can't believe that this has happened. Somehow one always thinks that the fateful telegrams always come next door, but never your own. No words can express my sorrow. My little girl is unaware of the great tragedy which has happened to her. She will miss so much in life by missing his guidance and laughter throughout her life. I can only pray that I might be able to make her understand what a wonderful man he was." It's an aside. It's funny, the older you get, the more tears that come. As far as I know, there was no service, all hoping it was a mistake, except perhaps my mother, who late in her life shared with me that she heard him call out her name that Mother's Day. His mother, Frances Berry, died a year later, and the two of us moved away from Kentucky. As a child, I knew little about my dad. My mother was remarried with 2 more small children, and for her, it wasn't an easy topic. Neither of his sisters, Martha and Mary, shared many stories, but it was abundantly clear how much he was loved and grieved by so many. Preparing for this evening, I read through the letters he wrote to family and friends. My mother kept her letters to him and from him very private, and they're gone. Those letters were a small window into who he was. He was universally loved and liked by an inordinate amount of people. I found that out when visiting my husband's family before we were married. I was introduced, and we started chatting, and we talked about my dad, who was in the Navy, as was John Platt, my husband's father. And he said, "What was your father's name?" I said, "David Berry." He went right to his 1940 flight jacket from Pensacola, pulled it out, and said, "There's your dad." Actually, the only person I've ever met who knew my dad and wasn't a relative. He knew him as a very personable person. He didn't know him well, but he knew of him. A lot of people knew of him. He had many friends with his easily accessible smile. He had that special quality of making you feel as if you were the most important person in the room when he talked to you. He had the love of argument, just for the sake of argument. No, that snow isn't white, it's black. He was rarely on time. He was stubborn. He had a wonderful sense of humor, a great sense of adventure, and he was never wrong, according to my mother. An innate sense of right and wrong, and the urge and will to right that wrong. I see these traits in my children, in my cousins, his nieces and nephews, and their children. I saw those traits in my aunts, Martha Berry Garvin and Mary Berry Donnelly. I see them in my children, Jennifer and Jonathan, and in my cousins, his nephews and nieces, Martha Ann Deputy, David Berry Garvin, Kathy Hunt, Tootsie Donnelly, John Donnelly, Berry Donnelly, Tad Donnelly, Hermance Donnelly, and David Donnelly. This is an evening to remember all the families who have lost a loved one in war and their strength and courage to keep living for the future in the midst of such grief and loss. My deepest gratitude to my cousin Barry Dotterly, who piloted this nomination and this wonderful evening, to Jim McCormick and Louis Bosworth and the Hall of Fame for this extraordinary honor for my family. This is perhaps the memorial service my dad and his family never had in the chaos of those times. A well-deserved recognition of this extraordinary, ordinary Kentuckian who loved his country, who loved to fly, and most certainly loved his family. Thank you.
Lieutenant Commander David Berry, did you hear what we just learned? 3 Navy crosses. Do you realize that the Navy Cross, or the Air Force Cross, or whatever, is second only to the Medal of Honor? And to get 3 of those is just incredible and unheard of. Now it's time to meet the 3rd member of our 2018 Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame class, and that's Lieutenant Colonel Thomas W. Smitto. Let's learn more about this amazing aviator who traveled in a pretty fast airplane, and you're going to learn more about that in the video that hopefully is going to play right now.
The year was 1933. Marion Bergeron was crowned Miss America. King Kong first appeared on the silver screen. FDR announced,
"Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself."
and Thomas W. Smitto was born at home in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, to Pauline and Wilbur Smitto. Pauline was a homemaker, and Wilbur worked as a pattern maker for the Elk Brand clothing factory in Hopkinsville. Tom was the second of 4 children and the only boy. As Tom was growing up, he developed a love for airplanes. He built flying models and would travel with a neighborhood friend and his dad to Berry Field in Nashville to watch civilian and military planes take off and land. The glimpse of World War II fighter planes in flight made Sunday trips to Music City an event to look forward to. Tommy loved math and science, but he was also active in sports and extracurricular activities such as football, track, science club, photography club, glee club, library staff, conservation club, school paper, yearbook staff, and class officer. This might be enough activity for some young men, but Tom also had an early morning Courier Journal paper route and worked in the Western Auto Store on Saturdays. After high school graduation, Tom considered a career in fingerprinting with the FBI or maybe the Coast Guard. But he realized the U.S. Air Force would be a better fit for him. He passed the physical and was sent for aviation cadet navigator training at Ellington Air Force Base in Houston. Tom was offered a choice in advanced training for finishing in the top of his class. His choice was radar reconnaissance in the B-26. Tom knew that the B-26 was being used in Korea, and he wanted to go where the action was. So it was off to Mather Air Force Base in Sacramento for advanced reconnaissance navigator training. Upon completion of this training, Tom received his commission and navigator wings. His first duty assignment was with the 90th Bombardment Squadron K-8 in Korea. The 90th was using the B-26 to hit supply centers and transportation systems. The 90th needed navigator bombardiers. So Tom settled into the right seat for the flight to the target and then crawled forward to the Norden bomb site for the bombing run. When the U.S. withdrew from Korea, Colonel Smitto was pulled back to Tokyo for 6 months and then back to Shaw Air Force Base, South Carolina. He was assigned as navigator on the high-altitude B-57 until their complement of B-47s arrived, and that would require more training in California. It was in Sacramento at a friend's 4th of July picnic where Tom met Joanne. Romance blossomed, and Tom and Joanne were married 6 months later in Joanne's hometown of Pittsburgh. Tom spent the next 5 years at Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho. This would be where 3 of their 4 children would be born. The B-58 Hustler began production and was replacing the B-47. Tom was sent to Fort Worth and San Antonio for training, and then to Bunker Hill Air Force Base, Indiana, to fly the B-58. He would log more than 500 hours in the first supersonic bomber capable of a sustained speed of Mach 2 and a payload of 5 nuclear weapons. Colonel Schmittou was at Bunker Hill when he was called into the commander's office to meet with Major General Douglas Nelson. The general had selected Tom as one of the first 4 reconnaissance system officers, or RSO, for a new program with a new plane. This program was the SR-71 Blackbird. Tom would need to pass an astronaut physical and complete training at Lockheed's Skunk Works in Burbank. Colonel Schmittou finished both the training and physical and went on to complete 30 combat missions over North Vietnam and the last operational mission over North Korea. There were 32 Blackbirds built, and none were lost to enemy action, although 5 countries vehemently tried. Tom's family waited eagerly to welcome him home at Beale Air Force Base between combat missions. When he joined the SR-71 program, Tom joined a very elite fraternity of Air Force officers. He was one of the first 4 RSOs for the Blackbird, the first RSO to fly the SR-71s at Mach 3, or 2,200 miles per hour, at an altitude of 16 miles. The first RSO of only 5 that have logged more than 900 hours at supersonic speed. His service medals include Distinguished Flying Cross, Meritorious Service Medal, 5 Air Medals, 10-year Combat Crew Medal, National Defense Medal with Bronze Star, Armed Forces Expedition Service Medal, Presidential Unit Citation with 1 Bronze Star, Vietnam Service Medal with 3 Bronze Stars, Korean Service Medal, United Nations Service Medal, first RSO recognized for over 900 hours of supersonic flight. Thomas Schmittou retired from the Air Force in July 1973. At that time, he had more supersonic hours logged than any other RSO in the Air Force. Thomas started his second career as a real estate broker and appraiser. He enjoyed that profession for more than 35 years. In 2011, at the age of 78, Tom retired and now lives with his son in Almo, Kentucky. Tom accepted the challenge to fly high speed and high altitude with valor and distinction. He has brought honor to himself, his country, and the Commonwealth. It is therefore fitting that Lieutenant Colonel Thomas W. Schmittou be enshrined into the official Aviation Hall of Fame of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
I was a little late coming out because I was speaking to Lieutenant Colonel Schmittou in the back. As a C-141 guy primarily, I've hauled a lot of things around the world, places you can't even spell, right? And we used to haul nose cones and other parts for the SR-71, primarily to Kadena Air Base, Japan. We were talking about the SR-71, but I didn't realize until now that he had flown the B-58 Hustler. You don't know many people that have flown that airplane. It was one of the fastest ever built and also one of the most dangerous. So he and I want to have lunch. I want to hear about his B-58 experience. He started talking and his voice got really loud and I said, we'll talk later, right? I think I made him nervous just bringing the darn thing up. Wait till you meet Nicole Schmittou. She's the granddaughter from Fort Collins, Colorado. She's a registered dietitian. I met her earlier, and I know she was watching me at dinner to see if I was going to eat that dessert, right? She also is a teacher at the University of Northern Colorado, which is in Greeley. She lives in Fort Collins. The university is in Greeley. They're the University of Northern Colorado Bears, as I recall. And then Nicole will present the award to Lieutenant Colonel Schmittou himself. Nicole, come forward, young lady. Today will be fine. Come on up.
I'm coming. Thank you. Hi. Like you said, I'm Nicole. I'm the granddaughter of this amazing man that you just saw this presentation on. His other granddaughter, Audra, is going to be coming up with me to present his plaque here in a minute, but I just wanted to share some stories about him as a man. You got to see all the amazing things that he did in the Air Force, and I remember seeing some of those pictures on the walls of their home of him and my grandmother, and thinking, my grandfather's an astronaut. I thought that for a really long time because of these amazing suits that he had on in these photos. But he did. He got to go through all that astronaut training. And even as I was getting older, as a little kid, going into middle school, high school, we would go to things like county fairs, or out in California visiting his other granddaughter, we would go to Walt Disneyland. And even at 60, 70, he would get on roller coasters and those gravitrons and had no problem doing all these really amazing things that most kids don't get to see their grandfather doing. He was just is a Superman character for us. And even with this big personality and these amazing accomplishments, he's also really funny and sweet and incredibly loving. Not just to his grandkids and his kids, but to his great nieces and nephews and great grandkids. He always remembers birthdays and sends everyone in the family something for Christmas. He just does such an amazing job wrapping everyone up, everyone that's his, making sure that we know that we're loved. And so he's just such an amazing man for us to look up to, such this patriarchal figure in our family that not everyone gets to have, all these different spectrums of strong and courageous and talented and intelligent, but also sweet and funny and warm, and just an incredibly loving person to have in our family. Seeing some of these other videos and people accepting rewards on behalf of their family members, I just feel incredibly lucky that we get to present this to him while he's here with us and get to share in that pride that he has for all of his accomplishments, because he's so proud, he's so excited to be here. And I'm so excited to be here with them. So I'm gonna ask Audra, my cousin, to come up with me as we present his medal and his plaque to him. Audra, if you wanna come up too. And he's gonna share some amazing things, because in addition to just being like one of my favorite people, he's the best storyteller. So we may even have to chime the bells, because he could keep you guys engaged and interested all night long. He has the best things to share.
That's a good-looking fella.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas W. Smidow is now receiving the medallion inscribed in his name and is declared duly enshrined in the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame.
I can remember my last combat flight just like it was yesterday. And actually, it was 45 years ago, but it was on February the 1st, 1973. Took off from Kadena, Okinawa, Japan, and this was going to be a short flight, just one pass over Hanoi with my both side cameras taking pictures 100 miles either side of Hanoi. And it was a clear day. I could see through my view sight that we were getting good pictures. And I landed back in Okinawa after 4 hours. And that was my last combat flight, but I continued to fly in the SR until the 5th of May, 1973. But it was just like I never wanted to stop flying. I feel I was born to fly, even if it meant being a Gib, the guy in the back seat. And now I would like to thank my daughter for doing the research to be able to submit me for the Hall of Fame, and thank the Hall of Fame for accepting me, and thank my many relatives that are in the audience now. They come from 5 different states. And I would like to thank the rest of the people in the audience. You've been a real good crowd. God bless you, and God bless America.
Okay, that's the guy I'd like to sit down and have lunch with on a regular basis. I mean, every time we do this, there's incredible blessings. How blessed are we to hear from that man? Mach 3 plus. And it appears he fancies himself as quite the comedian. These beautiful ladies with him said that he sends birthday cards to every child, grandchild, neighborhood children, I don't know, every year, and I have added my birthday to his list. I'm afraid to keep talking. He's out right in front of me. He may very well break into a routine. I'm not sure. Bless you, sir. The older I get, and I'm 69.5, quit doing the math, the more value my minuscule service to America gets. And when I meet men like that, and I see videos and learn about the men prior, it makes me even more proud that I'm in that fraternity. Now we're going to introduce you now to the only one of the 4 enshrinees, the 4th member of this class of 2018, the only one that I knew personally and considered a very dear personal friend. And that's Lowell M. Wiley. You're going to love this guy. A lot of you in here knew Lowell. 20,000 flying hours. You'll hear that in a moment. That's unheard of. Lowell Wiley. Let's learn more about this fine and amazing aviator. Roll the video.
Determined is how you would describe Lowell Wiley's approach to life. When he made his mind up to do something, he would not stop until he got it done. Lowell was born in Salvisa, a small town in Mercer County, Kentucky, to parents Earl and Edith Wiley in 1936. Along with his 4 brothers, he was part of a family of aviators, and from a very young age, he was determined to join them in the sky. In 1949, he took his first flight. He was 13, and his father took him up in a 4-place Belanca. As he got older, he took flight lessons from his brother Earl Sherman. Earl learned to fly on the GI Bill and became a flight instructor, and later worked as a crop duster and corporate pilot. It was these lessons that got Lowell hooked on flying. Hoping to follow Earl's path to flying, Lowell joined the Marines, but due to a medical issue, he was forced to resign. Undaunted and still determined to serve his country, he joined the Air Force, and while he longed to fly, poor eyesight prevented that. In 1958, while stationed in Little Rock, Arkansas, he joined the Little Rock AFB Aero Club and began flying again with instructor Morton Fitzpatrick, who was an ex-B-47 bomber pilot and someone who Lowell would remember for his entire flying career. He soloed on October 13th of that year in the club's Aranca 7AC Champ. Like a parent, a flight instructor can make a real impression on a student, and Lowell, who was determined to be the best pilot he could be, took each lesson to heart. Years later, he would reflect that those lessons contributed to saving his life more than one time. Now with his pilot license in hand, he left the Air Force in September 1959 and returned to Kentucky, where he would make flying his life. Living in Lexington, Kentucky, he joined the local unit of the Civil Air Patrol, a group he would work with for the rest of his life. He was also a member of the Fayette Flying Club, where he pursued his commercial pilot license, and shortly after, in 1963, his CFI. He was now a certified flight instructor. Joining the staff of Bomer Flying Service as an instructor, he continued to upgrade his rating, and by the spring of 1964, he had completed his instrument and multi-engine rating. Never missing the opportunity to be in the air, he worked with many of the Kentucky air services that needed a pilot. Capital Air Taxi in Frankfort, Bomer Flying Service in Lexington, Kentucky Flying Service in Louisville, working as a corporate pilot for the Martinet Corporation and the Bluegrass Airmotive and Dawson Bridge Company. Over the years, he flew people from Adolph Rupp to Alabama Governor George Wallace, Burt Reynolds, and Dinah Shore. And when he was not flying his clients around, he would be instructing. The more Lowell flew, the more ratings he collected. He became a commercial-rated helicopter pilot with instrument training in 1967, and by 1969 he had earned the Airline Transport Pilot rating for single and multi-engine airplanes and a commercial rating for single roto helicopters and single and multi-engine seaplane ratings. He was also rated as a certified flight instructor for airplanes, instruments, and helicopters, as well as being a basic and advanced ground instructor. Lowell did get to spend more time on the ground. In 1970, while working at Bluegrass Airport, he met and married Wanda Blades. Later, they welcomed 2 daughters, Erica and Michelle. In 1978, Lowell began work with the Del Rio Flying Service in Hondo, Texas, instructing United States Air Force Academy cadets. Although it started as a temporary position, he was asked to come back and did so several more times. Between 1987 and 1992, he came back to Lexington, Kentucky to live, but returned to Hondo, Texas each summer during that period to train Air Force cadets. His flying slowed between 1992 and 2004, but in 2004, he returned to flying with a vengeance and began his second tour with the Civil Air Patrol, where he flew 5 more years as a mission pilot, flight instructor, and check pilot. He attained the rank of major in the Civil Air Patrol. During his 50 years of flying, he accumulated more than 20,000 hours of flying. He is credited with training hundreds of pilots, flew many different aircraft, and served his country proudly and promoted the aviation industry. In 2009, he was awarded the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award for 50 years of flight safety. In July 2010, AOPA featured Lowell in their monthly pilots section of the magazine. He was called an excellent teacher and instructor. He would just say that he was lucky, blessed, and grateful. Lowell was determined to be the best pilot and instructor he could be, and like his mentor, Morton Fitzpatrick, Lowell became someone his students would look up to. Lowell M. Wiley passed away in August of 2010. After his passing, one of his students wrote, "Lowell Wiley was my first CFI ever. We met at a cap flight camp in 2006. I wanted to tell him how, when I met him, I was a kid scared that I would flip the plane over. Now I'm a commercially licensed pilot, and I'm getting my MS in aviation human factors. I wanted to tell him about how far I had come and how he had started me on the right track for the rest of my life." It is therefore fitting that Lowell M. Wiley be enshrined into the official Aviation Hall of Fame of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
There's no telling how many pilots, civilian pilots, military pilots, commercial pilots, who are walking around America today thanking Lowell Wiley for getting them started in this amazing business. And before I introduce family members, let me tell you one thing I didn't mention earlier that I think is critical is today there is a pilot shortage in America. Have you heard that? My Air Force is 2,000 pilots short today. We have to ground airplanes because we don't have men and women to fly them. Regional airlines are grounding airplanes because they don't have men and women to fly them. When a CFI leaves one university or one school or one business, you almost can't find another certified flight instructor because they're all going to go fly for the airlines because it's that kind of market. So if you know young people who might be interested in aviation, but by the way, we're also short of mechanics, A&Ps. We're short of air traffic controllers. We're short of aeronautical engineers. We have to motivate young people to get involved. This museum, this Hall of Fame, is doing a great job of finding young people. The museum summer camp that's changing young lives, but we need everybody to help. And we have people like Lowell Wiley who did this for decades. And we need more of him, and we got to grow him from the ground up. Now, Michael Klein is going to come out He's Erica's husband, which is the thing of which he's most proud, right? Because Erica Wiley Klein is a mother of 3, a homemaker, a stay-at-home mom who lives right here in Lexington, Kentucky. And her husband, Michael Klein, is going to come out first, and then she'll present the award to Erica. Michael?
Good evening. I have to apologize first off. I'm not much of a public speaker, so I've got most of this typed up. I'm proud to be here to speak about Lowell. I know his brother Ronald wanted to be here tonight to give this presentation, but unfortunately, due to personal reasons, he was not able to make it. So I'm trying to fill in as best I can. I met Lowell for the first time back in 1992. I was at UK, and I met his daughter, Erica. We started dating. This was not long after he was grounded due to health reasons. However, he did not let this stop him. So being the forward-driven man that he was, he dove right back into one of his many other passions, and that was computers. And that's me too. So we're both able to bond over this knowledge of building custom computers as he did as a basement business. He would design and build computers for flight students who wanted to run simulators to help in their flight training. Doing this helped him stay up to date on new airplanes and regulations. Even though he was not flight active at the time, he was always up to date on aviation. You could see the excitement in his eyes when he would download a new airplane and share with me the many details of the planes and its controls, since at the time that was the closest he could get. He would also talk about his love of flying and his many experiences and places that he had been throughout his career. It's interesting to note, although he was in the Air Force for 4 years, the Air Force did not actually train him to fly. It was through the local flying club that he learned. And 19 years later, he was actually instructing, as the video said, U.S. Air Force cadets in Hondo, Texas, and did that for many years. Lowell also loved to write, and it was his love of writing and aviation that led him to pursue stories, especially about Jessica DeBroff. You might all remember the 7-year-old who tragically lost her life while trying to set a record soloing across America. He drove by himself, actually, across the United States to California to interview family and friends with the intention of writing a story about it. But even though he loved writing, the one thing that he was missing was being a pilot in the pilot seat again. After 11 years of not being able to fly in 2003, Lowell had cataract surgery. And he went from a man who wore the thickest glasses I had ever seen in my life to none at all. He wasted no time getting his flight status back, which allowed him to begin instructing students in the air and to rejoin the Civil Air Patrol. I've never seen him more happy than when he was finally able to return to the sky. He would often talk about his flights and training maneuvers that he taught his students. Thankfully, Lowell was able to get that second chance to be in the skies above us and to help others reach their goals. His love of flying and vast experience helped to train generations of future pilots, and I was proud to know him and his legacy in the history of flight. Thank you. I'd like to introduce his daughter, Erica Klein.
Ladies and gentlemen, Erica Wiley King is now receiving the medallion inscribed in the name of Lowell M. Wiley, who is declared duly enshrined in the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame.
Good evening. My sister, Michelle, and I are here tonight and I want to say thank you so much to everyone involved with the Kentucky Aviation Hall of Fame. Thank you all for this wonderful honor for our father tonight. Sadly, we lost him to cancer in 2010, just 1 month before his 74th birthday and not long after he received the Wright Brothers Award. We wish he was here with us tonight to accept this himself. He would be very proud, as we are. My sister and I grew up in and around airplanes and airports. Daddy seemed to always have us at the airport for one thing or another. Till I was about 10 or so, I just assumed everybody's daddy was a pilot. It was just everyday life for all of us. He loved flying. It was like oxygen to him. So when he got sick in 2010 and became too ill to fly anymore, he was devastated. My father was a man with many avocations: literature, film, music, computers, flying. But that was his life. The smell of jet fuel, the sound of the engines coming to life, the feeling of lifting off of the runway, heading into the sky above. That's what he lived for, what he loved. I remember as a little girl being in the plane with him. He would go through a cloud for me. I felt like I was on a roller coaster and my heart would leap up. And I would say, "Daddy, do it one more time." And he would. He loved my sister and I very much. He loved to let us fly with him as often as possible. He was a corporate pilot, and over the years, my sister, mother, and I were lucky enough to accompany him on many flights, many trips. But neither of us, although we loved flying, had the passion for it that he had. We did, however, provide him with another passion: his 5 grandchildren. I have 3. My sister has 2. They were his pride and joy. He loved showing them all about airplanes, about flying. I remember many times he would bring them here to the museum. And whenever possible, we all went together as a family with all the kids in tow to wherever the nearest air show was. He even got them a computer program to introduce them to flying when they were young. One Thanksgiving after the turkey, my 2 sons, who were only 2 and 4 then, had toddled off to the computer and jumped on to take it for a flight, unbeknownst to us. It was only after finishing a piece of pumpkin pie that we walked back to the room the computer was in and found them fast asleep in a chair in front of the computer with autopilot flying them. My father was the epitome of flying. He loved everything about it. He loved the camaraderie that he had with other pilots, keeping up with the newest trends, and he was always eager to learn about the latest, newest technology. He used to say to us when we were younger, "Never go backward if you can go forward." That was my dad. He was always moving forward, whether it was going back to college and earning his bachelor's degree from the University of Kentucky at the age of 55, or rejoining the Civil Air Patrol and earning the rank of major. It was always throttle up. So in December 2009, when he received the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award, it truly was the culmination for him of a lifelong career in aviation. He was so humbled to have been bestowed that honor. I can tell you all tonight that he would truly be overjoyed to be receiving this recognition for his dedication and contributions in the field of aviation. And so from the bottom of our hearts, my sister and I thank you for this amazing honor for our father. Thank you all. Thank you.
Lowell Wiley, a fine man indeed, and what a beautiful family. Well done. Just a reminder, Jim McCormick, the master of pretty much everything, just told me that all the videos that were shown tonight will be available tomorrow on our YouTube channel. By our, I assume it means the Hall of Fame or the Aviation Museum, but I couldn't find YouTube without my wife to help me. But Jim McCormick knows, so if you have any questions, if you know about YouTube, it'll be on there tomorrow. Final thanks to the class of 2018, Brigadier General Jesse Otten, Lieutenant Commander David Render Berry, Lieutenant Colonel Thomas W. Schmitto, Lowell M. Wiley, and our Achievement Award winner for 2018, Alltech. we're going to ask that all those who were honored tonight, please come up here to the stage right after we're dismissed, which is coming up very shortly, so we can take some pictures. Every now and then, somebody will sneak out, and we have to Photoshop you into the picture, right? So, not me, I wouldn't know how to do that, but Jim McCormick would do it. So, come up here right after the program and get pictures, all right? Because we have a camera, and we'll know if you try to sneak out. Auction winners from the silent auction, you will need to report to the front desk to claim your prize. And when you try to get it, if you didn't bid enough, we'll ask for a little more, all right? We're going to be dismissed in a moment. At my Baptist church, at the very end of the sermon, every Sunday, he'll say, "Be warm, be filled, be gone." And we sit in there for 45 minutes waiting to hear those words, right? But most importantly, and having been a commander of 4 Air Force organizations, I would lose sleep worrying that after a function, somebody on my team would get hurt going home. Wherever you're from, whether it's right here in the shadows of this airport, or New York, or Colorado, wherever you're from, especially if you're driving tonight, be careful. Because if one person is hurt, or God forbid killed, after this evening, it ruins it for all of us. So please drive carefully. Our goal was to get you out of here at 9 p.m. Check your watches. Okay, we're a minute late. That was because the video crew back here delayed briefly. God bless you all. We're going to hear High Flight now. I think the amazing people behind the curtain are going to play High Flight. Because of what that means to me and our enshrinees and many people in here, can we stand and listen to High Flight, which is so special to us? And when that ceases playing, you may go away unless you got to come to the stage. God bless you all.
Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth, and danced the skies on laughter-silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed, and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds, and done 100 things you have not dreamed of. Wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. Hovering there, I've chased the shouting wind along, and flung my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up the long, delirious, burning blue, I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark nor even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the high, untrespassed sanctity of space, put out my hand and touched the face of God. Go in peace. Good night.